Look, I've been overweight, and if I had to do it all over again, here's how I'd lose it like that. Now, I will warn you, what I'm about to teach you will have others accusing you of taking Ozempic because it's that effective. And it's so effective that we've used it on our clients like Kieran here, who's lost not just 30 pounds, but 66 pounds so far. And he's on track to have an amazing 2026. So if you want to get results like Kieran before the end of 2025, take notes and follow this. Number 1, start with the stop. You already have enough on your plate. It's better to actually look at what is our lowest hanging fruit in terms of if we eliminated it, at least for a period of time, will yield us the most amount of results in the shortest time frame. That starts with stopping certain behaviors. It could be stopping alcohol for a certain period. It could be stopping buying trigger foods that cause you to overeat. If you start with the stops and build from there, you'll have a much better chance of long-term success, because otherwise, what's the point if you're only in it for the short run? Number 2, before you even start, you need to figure out your calorie maintenance. Now, there are a ton of calculators online to do this. I'll leave a link in the description for one below. So figuring out your maintenance and eating below that, around 250 to 400 calories maximum, depending on the person, is a really good place to start. Then that leads us on to step 3, have a plan. You need to have a plan with your nutrition, what kind of meals you're going to eat, your training, how that is going to be structured, your lifestyle, your habits. You need to have milestones as well to be able to help motivate you along the way. If you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. And look, if you need help with the plan, we actually have a course that gives you an initial plan that gets you going and losing that fat and keeping it off. I'll leave a link for that in the description below too. Now, once you've got a plan, how will you know when to adjust? Your training, your nutrition, your activity. Well, that leads us on to step 4. Data is king. And of course, the most important one I would say when it comes to fat loss is data with what's going in your mouth. Now, this could be calorie tracking. You need to start collecting that data. MyFitnessPal is a very common one, but data with your food especially is what's really going to help you be consistent in eating under that calorie maintenance. Without data, we can't make educated decisions. We're just kind of shooting in the dark, and you might get some results, but it's not going to be informed, precise decisions that are going to help you get to that outstanding result and ultimately losing that 30 plus pounds before 2025. Now, once you've got your data, you then need to do an audit. You need to audit your environment. That's step 5. I see nobody talking about this, but you need to have a look at, first and foremost, your kitchen. Do you have trigger foods? Is it going to make it more difficult to fight the urge or those cravings if you've got that food in the cupboard? We need to set up and audit our environment accordingly for success, meaning remove those trigger foods, okay? If you don't have that option for whatever reason, maybe your partner's not on board, and if they are not on board, by the way, you need to also have a conversation with them. That's part of auditing your environment. And even things from the gym that you go to. If you go to a crap gym, you're not really going to want to train as much as if you go to a gym where the energy is good, the vibe's good, you enjoy being there, the equipment's nice, the music's really good. And so before you even begin this journey of losing 30 plus pounds, you need to have your environment set up for success. You do that by auditing it. And then step 6, walk before you run. What we mean by this is just put enough on your plate to manage, i.e. tracking your calories, making sure your meals are consistent before you start throwing cardio into the mix, or before you start doing 10, 12 plus K steps every day, or deciding to cut out entire food groups. Start small and scale up from there. It's much easier to scale it up than it is to try and bring it back down if you've started off too high. And so I know it's not sexy, but if you want long-term success and you want to keep this weight off for good, you need to start off small and build from there. Because if you don't and you try and run before you can walk, you're going to fall. Now, to help you with this is step 7. Perform a 2-week sprint. This is when we get going for the first 2 weeks. And what we mean by sprint is not going all out and, again, doing a lot of cardio, crash dieting. What we mean is let's get some positive momentum behind us by tracking your data, tracking your calories, making sure you go in the gym consistently, doing the basic stuff, but just doing it consistently for 2 weeks. And remember to starting with the stops, right? Cutting out alcohol for those 2 weeks, cutting out any trigger foods for those 2 weeks, just to help get that positive momentum. Now, that leads us on to step 8, which is after the 2-week sprint, we want to start really setting some clear milestones with a set date in place. And you want to break down this bigger overarching goal with smaller milestones in the middle. And you want to focus on achieving those milestones rather than this big scary goal that's potentially 3-4 months away. Now, part of it is milestones. The other part of the equation is getting some dates in place. Why don't you work towards something in the first month? Why don't you work towards going out to an event or a dinner with your loved one and you really want to try on your new shirt, but it's just a little bit too tight? Work towards that. Give yourself a month. You'd be amazed at how efficient putting in urgency is when it comes to achieving a goal. Now, when it comes to setting these dates in place and the milestones, that leads us on to step 9. Understand the push and pull forces at play. These are hidden forces that psychologically help or hold you back from achieving your goal. We start with the pushing force, which is the force of pain. The pain of remaining the same becomes greater than the pain of change. So if you want to lose these 30 pounds, you've got to understand what's driving you from changing in the first place. You're going to have to tap into that when things get inevitably tough. And it's something we reflect back on continuously with our clients to help get them to that next milestone. Then the other part of this equation is the pulling force, which we can think of that as the positive outcome that's going to happen if we achieve this goal and these milestones, which is confidence, energy. My wife is going to find me attractive again. I'm going to feel more attractive. I'm going to be able to go on dates more. I'm going to have more self-respect. Others are going to respect me. And if you have this pushing force propelling you towards your goal and this pulling force pulling you through the inevitable difficult times, you stand a much more greater chance of success. Now, during this process, you're going to need to rely heavily on step 10, which is protein is king and fiber is queen. And the reason you want to remember it like this is because your biggest enemy to your success is going to be largely down to hunger. Okay, it's part of the reason why drugs like Ozempic have shot up in popularity, because they just blunt the hell out of your hunger. And what we want to do instead is solve the root cause, have a long-term solution, which is protein is going to keep you full, but also fiber really helps keep you full. It's going to slow down that digestion. It's going to help with your blood sugar response, helping you with regular, consistent energy throughout the day, which gives you that energy to push hard in your trainings, to be able to do the steps, to do the cardio. But if you don't have enough protein, enough fiber in your diet, it's going to be like fighting an uphill battle. And hey, look, if you slip up, which look is normal, we are all human, step 11 is really going to help you here, which is to understand that one hot day does not make a summer. If you screw up on one of your meals or even the weekend, you need to get right back on the plan. Okay, that doesn't define your success. It's when our response to that wobble then leads to binging or starting back again on Monday or next week. And that's your response to that event that needs to change, which is more like a cognitive behavioral technique. But understanding that and remembering that during that process that, hey, look, I had a bit of a wobble. The best thing we can do is try and learn from this. That's something we do with our clients is, hey, look, you've had a wobble. Great. Let's analyze it. Let's review it and let's plug up that hole in that bucket, so to speak, so that it doesn't keep leaking and you can start to improve without those wobbles in the future. And now look, I'm not going to bullshit you. This process is hard. Okay. If it was easy, everybody would do it. It's difficult. And that difficulty is something that you're going to just have to face head on. That's step 12. Reframe the difficulty and the hunger as a positive thing. Hunger is part of the process. Think of it as a sign that you're losing fat, and it's something that you have to inevitably go through if you want to get to that next level. And so you need to reframe those difficult trials as an opportunity to callous your mind and push on through, because at some point you're going to have to walk through that fire. I can give you all the tips and tricks and hacks, and you can keep watching YouTube videos like this, but the people who get the great results are the ones that can just sit in the pain willingly and sit there. We call that grit. And if you can develop grit through difficult periods, through facing that hunger, you're going to stand a much greater chance of achieving that goal, but of course, keeping those results as well. Now, during this process, it can be very easy to get caught up in minutia. Should I start fasting? Should I try these supplements? I've heard that HIIT cardio is better than steady state cardio for burning fat. You need to follow step 13, which is to keep it simple the whole time. Remember the basics, focus on them, and the rest will kind of manage itself. Because the reality is, if you were doing the basics correctly, you'd have the body that you want. And I'm not going to sit here and try and sell you on some supplement or some kind of new training method, because you don't need that. You need to keep it simple and continuously do that for 3, 4, 6 months. That's how you get to your goal. And It might not be sexy, but it's the truth. And the penultimate step here, step 14, is to not cut out foods. I see it time and time again. You cut out bread, pasta, carbs. You avoid seed oils because you think they are going to kill you or cause oxidative stress, which I won't get into in this video. Maybe in a future video we'll explain why that's not necessarily the case, and all the meta-analysis and all the randomized controlled trials say otherwise. You should be focusing on having a wide variety of fruits and veg, of a good balance of protein, carbs, and fats. You've probably heard this so many times, but it's because it's true, and the stuff that gets clicks online is the stuff that is very extreme and often requires you to cut out certain foods. But what will happen is you're going to create a big red button in your mind. And if I tell you not to press the big red button, what are you more tempted to do? You're going to wonder what that button does. It's going to be like a splinter in your mind, and you're never going to be able to get rid of it. And that same thing happens when it comes to cutting out foods. If you remove a food group and then you see or smell that food that is supposedly forbidden, it's going to ruminate on your mind, and at some point you're going to crack. Doesn't matter if you think you're David Goggins, you're going to have that food at some point. And when you do, the floodgates are going to open. You've then caused a negative relationship with your diet, with that food. And that's where we can develop really, really bad eating disorders. And that's not a road you want to go down. Trust me, from 5 years of dealing with one, it is not fun. And if you start cutting out food groups or thinking certain foods are forbidden, that's a very dangerous, dangerous path. The better thing to do is to see all food as fuel, and some junk food within the context of training, for example, is beneficial. You want sugar. You want that rocket fuel that's going to get into your bloodstream much quicker than, say, sweet potato. Okay, so don't cut out entire food groups, and actually do the last and final step. Step 15, learn how to track, because ultimately it's calories in versus calories out. And so many of you are so sternly set on, I just can't lose the weight no matter how hard I track or how consistent I am. And when we look at it, when we work with you guys, we see that you're not tracking correctly. And unbeknownst to you, you've been doing it incorrectly for years. You need to learn how to track, learn to read the back of food labels. You can call that neurotic, you can call that obsessive, but in my opinion, you have to be like that in a world that is full of gluttony and is almost set up to make you fail. So learning to track is a skill and is something that is, number one, going to help you be more aware of what's coming in your mouth so that you can lose weight consistently, but it's going to help you keep it off, because then you build this brilliant awareness of just how many calories and protein, carbs and fats and nutrients are in food. And that's a skill that you will need to develop if you want to get that and also keep these results in a world where it's so difficult to actually get in shape and stay in shape. Now, if your first reaction to any of these steps has been, I don't have the time, or I'm too old, or perhaps it's my metabolism that's broken, then you need to go and watch this video here.